Hello, Maro here, and welcome to another one of my videos. Hope you enjoyed the latest ones. Today we're going to talk about something a little bit different about how I have seen that sometimes as a startup you have too much on your plate, especially if you're a small startup with a small team and you have a lot of things to tackle. In the end, what can happen is that you have built this initial strategy and you try to follow it and you end up following it, but then you start actually trying to deliver it and you start focusing too much on the daily tasks. You try to focus, of course you have to focus on them, and that's not a bad thing, especially if you want to deliver what you have promised or you have to achieve certain objectives. However, that takes away sometimes the perspective about the longer term future, and some decisions that you take today are going to affect this long term vision and future in a way that maybe you do not expect at this particular moment. And also, by focusing too much on the present, sometimes you are building much more work, doing much more work than if you actually had prepared for it before. So I'm going to talk about this technique, which is very commonly used and known through the business world, which is basically scenario building technique. And how does this work? It's basically you have to take a look at the future and see, usually around 5 years into the future, and see what you expect and what is expected for the market, for your competition, for politics, and for your company. And try to build 3 different scenarios. A best case scenario, in which you're gonna see what is the best result that you can get with what you think is going to happen in the future. If everything goes well in terms of market growth, in terms of you developing your products, in terms of you building a base of customers, if everything goes well, where would you be? And once you look at that, you have to take a look inside your company and what you need your company to have in order for you to be able to reach that. So in a case of, let's say, you're gonna have a very high growth in terms of customers. Do you have the internal structure to actually supply these customers with the products that they need? And if you don't, what do you need to do in order to do that? So that would be the scenario in the best case scenario. Then you have the second scenario, which is the most likely, is where you think you're going to be and what you think is going to actually happen. And this is more of an intermediary scenario where you actually have to also think about what you need within your company in order to provide the services and reach this particular target. And the third scenario, and that's the one usually you don't like to make, but you need to do it, is the worst case scenario. In case everything goes the other way, let's say your development doesn't work or takes longer than expected, or the market moves in a different direction than you expected, or you have something happening that influences your business in a negative way, how are you going to cope with that? Which mitigation processes are going to put in place? And if mitigation is not enough, should you go ahead and change the business in a to a different business, but you still using the base that you already have? Are we going to pivot? Are we going to sell the business? Or what can we do regarding that? So the idea is that you try to understand the future, you build the scenarios, and with the scenarios, you build what you need to have within your company in order to achieve them, in terms of people, in terms of processes, in terms of systems, in terms of basically everything. And you might say, hey, I have so much on my plate right now, so much that I have to deliver right now, I don't have the time to do that. But in fact, it's the opposite thinking that you should have, because some of the things that building this scenario and building this strategy for the future, and it doesn't have to be as detailed and as ingrained in the first try and the second try, they actually are a positive thing for you to avoid more workload in the future. So let me just explain that to you, the main advantages of actually following this technique. First of all, you're going to have a clear view of what is up in the future, what is going to happen in the future. Right now, you might not know, maybe you're not following all the information, you didn't do this exercise of looking at the competition, you didn't do the exercise of what is the best scenario. or the worst scenario, the middle scenario, and what you need to put into it. So you have a clear vision of what is going to happen in the future. That's the first positive point. The second one, and especially if you involve most of the people in the company to it, you lower stress and anxiety, because not knowing the future creates stress and anxiety. So that's another positive point for yourself and for your company. The third point is that you, by thinking about it ahead, you can respond more quickly when actually things happen. So you already have something in place, something that you thought about that can happen, and you already thought what you're going to do if that thing happens. So when it happens, you can respond much quicker, and you have much less work to do on that day. And that comes to the next one, which is basically you know more about the future, so you can do more accurate forecasts of what is going to happen in the future. So by doing this exercise, the chances of getting a more accurate forecast is much higher. So the chances of actually presenting that to people that know about the market, investors and things like that, and show a perspective that is more to the point, more correct, helps you as well. And that will decrease your daily workload, because you already thought about the processes, you already thought about the contingency plans, and you already thought about what you need to do. So when these things happen, you don't need to build all this strategy and build all these responses at once. You already had it built in the past. So you just have to take a look at that and implement it. So it's much less work on a daily basis. So that's why sometimes fixating too much on the daily task is not the best solution. And not only that, by focusing on the daily task, you're trying to fix a problem right now without thinking how that impacts the future. If you do the scenario exercise, you know how the actions that you take today are going to impact the future, or at least you have a good idea. So actually, by doing that, also by taking decisions that of something that you didn't foresee in the past, you're going to be connecting that to what you expect in the future to happen, and you're going to try to make it in a way that you get the best result possible. Well, I hope you like this video. Please follow my channel here, and also if you have not signed up to my newsletter, the link is right below. Look forward to seeing you again. Take care.